This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, council. I'd like to call to order the Hazlet City Council meeting of June 20th, 2022. All members of the council are present in the chambers. If you would please bow your heads and I'll offer the invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, Almighty God. We thank you for all our many blessings. We thank you for your guidance that you give us, your hand that's upon us, and we continue to ask for your guidance and your wisdom. And I pray this in Jesus' name. God bless Hazlet, God bless the state of Texas, and God bless the United States of America. Amen. And if you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Go USA. Item 3 is citizen participation and comments. Is there anyone that would like to address the council? What do we have? Oh, we have give us a pause. Have a technical difficulty here. Are we good? Okay. Back to item 3. Is there anyone that'd like to address the city council on any item listed or not? Is there anyone online?
No.
There are none online and none in the chambers. And let's move to item 4. Items of community interest. Friday, July 1st is our Independence Day celebration and fireworks at the community park. And what are those times? I think we open up at 6 and the fireworks are, of course, we'll have vendors and events and things of that nature in the park. And the fireworks are at dusk. Is that correct? Pardon? About 9:15, fireworks will commence. It'd be a great time. Come join us. 4B, July the 4th, city offices and the Hazlet Public Library will be closed in observance of Independence Day. Hazlet Public Library will also be closed July the 2nd. Item 5, administrative reports. Council, do you have any questions on the administrative reports? If not, then we'll move on to item 6, updates on active items, projects, and the event recaps. We are pleasured to have MedStar with us. And Mr. Ken Simpson is the CEO of MedStar and will give this presentation. Welcome, Ken.
He told me to press the button ahead of time. Mayor and Council, my name is Ken Simpson. I am the CEO of MedStar. I appreciate your time this evening. You all should have in front of you a copy of our annual report and a copy of this presentation. I was fortunate enough to appear in front of you back in May to receive a proclamation for EMS Week. And this is just kind of an update that we typically do on an annual basis. I'm not going to go over each of these slides individually. There's like, I don't know, a lot of them. So I'm just planning on hitting the highlights for you this evening. And you're welcome to answer any questions as we go along. I think I'm too far away from you. Yeah, it's not. So, the first thing I want to share is if you're new to the council and whatnot, some of you may not realize MedStar is actually an EMS authority. It's a little bit different than what people are used to because the side of the ambulance doesn't say city of Hazlet or city of whatever. We've actually been around since 1986 with several cities came together and formed MedStar and basically invested to provide EMS coverage for their specific cities. A big part of that, an integral part of that, is the cities have agreed to provide first response. And we are very science-based in what we do. A lot of evidence-based medicine goes into our protocol development, how we treat patients and whatnot. And I can't really overemphasize the importance of having a good first responder program in place when people call with serious life-threatening emergencies, like they've gone into cardiac arrest and whatnot. Our dispatchers are trained to talk people through how to do CPR on their loved ones and whatnot if they're willing to. A lot of the data has shown the importance of that. As they say, time is brain cells, and within about 4 minutes of the event, people start losing brain cells. And every minute after that 4 minutes, the chance of survival is decreased by about 10%. So having a good first responder system in place to complement that emergency medical dispatch system is extremely important. Chief Mace has been an integral part of working with us. He sits on our EMS system performance task force and on our first responder advisory board and provides a lot of insight into the things that we do moving forward. Because of that involvement throughout the COVID pandemic, there in 2020, you see, we thought we got all ready. We watched the news stories about New York. We staffed up and nothing happened. And so one of the advantages of the system that we run is we kind of flex up and down based on demand. So we started kind of flexing down a little bit, which are basically what unit hours is. Each unit hour represents about one ambulance service or ambulance in service for that hour. Then all of a sudden people started calling 911 again. And what we realized was these folks don't want to go to the hospital because that's where COVID is. And so there were some interesting things that we were able to develop out of that with the first responder advisory board and whatnot. We, instead of always running a paramedic and an EMT throughout the system, we were able to deploy ambulances that have 2 EMTs on them. Paramedics are typically known as cardiac techs. Some of the folks with COVID, they didn't necessarily need a cardiac tech. Believe it or not, people will call us sometimes when they have like leg pain they've had for 3 weeks. Those folks tend not to need cardiac techs either. So it was a very good use of our resources moving forward. There you can see we were able to significantly increase the number of ambulances that were put on the streets over the last 2 years. And nationally, that has not been the case. A lot of folks have had increasing difficulty putting ambulances up over and over again. That slide basically just shows you between last year and this year, we've seen over a 10% increase in our call volume, which is pretty crazy to try to keep up with and staff to. So again, through the collaboration that we have within our system, we've been able to respond to that better. Because we are an EMS authority, we try to bring outside agencies in to help do some of our evaluations and things like that for us, so that you don't just have to believe me when I stand in front of you and tell you, hey, we're doing a good job. This is an example of one of those. This is the EMS survey team. They get all of the patients that we respond to, and they take and they provide these patients with a survey. They are contracted to pull back a certain number of completed surveys, and that is from the time that they called 911 until the time that they received the bill and have worked out whatever payment methodology. Out of that, our total score is 92.71 out of 100, which is not bad given the fact that at the end of this, they typically receive somewhere around a $2,000 bill. So you can get a bill like that and still get good grades. We're doing pretty well. The next couple slides, the next 3 slides are all kind of our COVID activities. You'll see basically during COVID, we worked to fill gaps as much as we possibly could. We did things like we had Tarrant County Public Health sending us folks in the morning. They would line up outside our building. These people would roll down their windows if they were symptomatic for COVID. and we lean in and give them COVID tests, and we send it off to Tarrant County Public Health, who would then run the test and let the folks know whether they were positive or not. We did pop up mobile vaccine clinics throughout the communities where in areas where people might not be able to get to larger clinics and whatnot. And so we did that in coordination with the state. We provided it to first responders. We also provided staffing to a variety of vaccine clinics as well. And we provided monoclonal antibody treatments in coordination with Fort Worth Fire. And then some on our site where we would provide, or on our campus where we would provide additional support for hospital overflow, because their monoclonal antibody treatments would be, their facilities would be full. And what that is that basically treats the symptoms of COVID. Essentially, it greatly lessens it, has showed significant improvement in the early variants and the outcomes of those patients and being able to keep them out of the hospitals. There are response times, kind of give you a little bit of picture of what we were talking about. Again, the green line, those priority 3 calls are those are kind of your 3-week leg pains. We typically respond to them without lights and sirens. They're determined to be emergency, but as we prioritize those calls through that emergency medical dispatch process, they're given a lower priority. And you see a lot of variance there with the call volume here in Hazlet being a little bit lower. We were able to slow down our call taking process a little bit for some of those lower acuity patients, just to make sure that we got a good handle on whether a patient that was calling 911 exhibited signs and symptoms of COVID, to give the first responders a heads up. I think that's the wrong way. Fiscal responsibility is another important part of what we do. We participate in a Medicaid program, and part of that Medicaid program is we have to use an outside agency to report on how much it costs us to provide services. Because basically when we run Medicaid patients, it costs us more to deliver that service than what they typically reimburse us. So the federal government and the state government have this program where they come together to try to make up a little bit of the difference. Again, it's an outside agency for the last 7+ years. We've led the state as far as providing the lowest cost service in the state. So we try to use those resources that we have very judiciously. They're at $396. With fuel prices, I do not anticipate that continuing as we move forward. Yes, sir. So to be perfectly honest with you, I'm not entirely sure why PCG splits them up as far as fire-based and non-fire-based. They anonymize everything, but they do group them into fire-based service, which is fire-based. A lot of fire departments will provide EMS service. The mid-cities, for example, they do that as well. And they essentially break those out between, again, fire-based. The non-fire-based would be like Third Service. Austin Travis County does that. They have a standalone EMS service, for example, that's not part of the fire department. And so they cost those out separately, and then they cost ours out individually. And so that's a comparison of those, of those 3 numbers. Again, we deploy a lot of different methodology to try to keep the costs low by flexing staff up and down. So we don't run the same number of ambulances 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In our kind of MedStar 101, we use the example of McDonald's. They don't cook the same number of cheeseburgers at 2 o'clock in the morning as they do at noon. We do the same thing with ambulances. We try to peak somewhere between 52 and 55 ambulances, and we normally hit a low somewhere in the 20s is what our deployment calls for. And it actually is in that 2 to 4 o'clock in the morning time frame. And we do that with historical information and positioning ambulances around. And having conversations with people like the First Responder Advisory Board and whatnot about, what calls make sense, what calls really need that quick response, and what clinically, and what calls are kind of community expectation, or, can we get away with a little bit longer response time with, because quite frankly, they don't need a lights and sirens response ambulance transport to the hospital. So.
Very good. Thank you.
Yes, sir. A couple of other accreditations I'll just touch on real quick is the CAS there. That's known as the gold seal of approval in EMS. They essentially evaluate our standard operating procedures and whatnot. They put people on site to then randomly grab my employees and ask them questions about like, hey, what do you do if you get hurt? And just to make sure that we're following what we say we turned into CAS. We've been accredited with CAS over the last 10 years, the International Academies of Emergency Dispatch. We have also been accredited with for well over 10 years. And part of the requirement of those is that we quality assure a certain percentage of our calls, that we provide feedback to the call takers and dispatchers, that we're measuring what we're telling them, that it's making an improvement, and that we're taking action if it doesn't make an improvement, it help give a little better level of comfort that our QA process is working as it should be as we take these calls. There at the bottom, you see only less than 1% of all the ambulance services in the country are dual accredited like that. The next 2 or 3 slides just kind of cover the financial challenges. The long and short is we are seeing more high deductible insurance plans, less PPOs, getting folks to be able to pay their ambulance bills is more and more difficult as they face those high deductible plans, which is having an impact on revenue. Insurance companies are realizing, again, kind of like we talk about, not everybody needs to go to the emergency room. And the conversations they're starting to have with us are around, hey, what can you do to help triage these patients to more appropriate facilities? And we're more interested in paying for that than continuing to pay you to take people to the hospital, or we'll get additional bills for treatment that probably doesn't need to be given in the hospitals. And so those are things that we're focusing on. Here you see our charity care write-offs. We revamped our charity care policy. When I start talking about $2,000 ambulance bills, people become concerned about who's getting those ambulance bills and their ability to pay. To be clear, we don't do hard collections on people. It will affect their credit report. And we never have done hard collections, at least in the last 15 years, as far as I know. But what we've done here is if people make 4 times the federal poverty level, and they are responsible for their bill and they're willing to provide documentation of that to us, or if they're a participant in a charity care program in a hospital, we honor the charity care program and we're willing to write their bill off. Believe it or not, some people don't want to provide that information, but we have to have the documentation to be able to do that. So there you see in 2021, we wrote off about $26 million to charity care.
So is that, that 25 million, is that the increase in write-off you're experiencing now?
So to be clear, we changed our charity care policy. And part of the reason we changed this is so we would end up writing that dollar amount off. It wouldn't necessarily go to charity care. It would go to bad debt in years past, because those folks didn't have the means to pay or whatnot. And the state and federal government, one of the other programs that they've recently come up with is they take a look at the amount that you've written off to charity care, and they provide some additional state and federal dollars for those amounts. So it's advantageous also for us to go ahead and get that written off the books, written off to charity care. That's why you see the large increase. It wouldn't be 25 million or 26 million in 2020. It would be something less than that, but it's always about 25% of the people that we pick up are self-pay. And out of the folks that are self-pay, in other words, they don't have insurance, we collect 2 to 3% of their total bills.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes. I mentioned a little bit about the tiered deployment program and running the BLS ambulances in the system. And we've had very positive results from that. Again, putting EMTs out in the ambulances instead of just an EMT and a paramedic. And it's really matching the response with the chief complaint of the patient a little bit better. It's worked very well. We've put out some quick response vehicles also to try to help supplement that and provide a little bit of safeguard. Those quick response vehicles will have a paramedic on them just in case the BLS truck gets on a call where they have a question or something like that. Again, we went through that a lot. Actually, Chief Mays and one of the other fire chiefs and I sat down and had a lot of discussions about kind of the questions and answers type session with that. And it's worked really well. It's allowed us to hire EMTs. It's given, the nice thing is we also offer a scholarship to get people through paramedic school. And so we have a lot of EMTs coming in, applying for jobs, asking about the scholarship as well. And now we have a place to put them. So it's really helped with that. We can skip over this one too. I talked a little bit about insurance companies being interested in paying for what else we can do. There's a program called ET3. It's Emergency Treatment, Triage, and Transport. It's a Medicare program. They don't call it a pilot program because it's the federal government. And apparently there's some regulations around what you have to do to call it a pilot program, but it's a pilot program. And basically what that does is our medical director's written protocols for those low acuity patients that are Medicare eligible or have Medicare insurance. And we go out to these patients and we'll see them and we'll just have a discussion and say, hey, you know, based on what your complaint is, you may not need to go to the emergency room. Would you be okay if we put you in touch with an ER physician who could do an assessment on you, as I've done, and perhaps help take care of you here in the home? We have folks call us for prescription refills and whatnot, and we have actually been able to deliver the prescriptions to the patient's house, not us specifically in an ambulance, but arrange for the prescription to be delivered in their house. The patient's never had to leave their house before. The surveys we've gotten back from these patients have been extremely positive. We used this a lot during COVID. Like I said, people did not want to go to the hospital. If you'll remember, they had visitation requirements or prohibitions during COVID also, which scared a lot of people because nobody wants to be in the hospital by themselves. So this allowed us to filter through some of the low acuity stuff very well. Medicaid has paid attention to that, and they said, hey, we think we'd like to try it. So September 1st, Medicaid will be coming onto that as well. We went in network with Cigna March 1st for a very similar type program, and it gets the rest of our rates in network with them. We're also having discussions with Blue Cross and Blue Shield around similar programs as well. The advantage for the insurance companies, as I mentioned earlier, is it's more cost effective for them to pay us for these low acuity patients and help navigate the patients, rather than us taking them to the emergency room where they get a bill from the emergency room, the ER physicians group, whatever other testing groups come in and do the test for those patients. I think somewhere around $5,000, I think, is what they estimate on a per patient basis that it costs the insurance company. So it'll be interesting to see how this works in the long term. Early signs are pretty positive, but there's not been it's a mentality change also for our crews because they've gotten so used to just taking people to the hospital over the years.
I wanted to ask, is these ER visits, is that any hospital ER or is that the county hospital, JPS?
We take people, for the most part, we take people pretty much anywhere they want to go. If they've been discharged from a hospital within last 48 hours, there's a protocol on it. I should probably know. I think it's 48 hours though. We're required to take them back to the emergency room where they were discharged from, or the hospital they were discharged from. The idea being they've already gotten treatment there, or perhaps they've had a surgery and whatnot, but we'll pretty well take them anywhere they want to go.
Thank you.
So the neat stuff, we got a new AMBUS this year. We do this in coordination with the Regional Advisory Council. They actually give us the bus. They sign the title over to us for free. Our obligation is to keep up with the maintenance and whatnot on it. It wasn't this bus, it was the predecessor to this on the I-35 pileup. It worked really well as a warming center and things like that. Offers us the ability to triage the patients in a place where it's warm and comfortable. We use it for some nursing home evacuations also. We've got a few new vehicle designs. Like everybody else, we've been affected by chassis shortages and whatnot. So our board was kind enough to approve some new supervisor vehicles there in the top right of your pictures. I could not find 4 white trucks. And so we ended up going with the gray, and our folks liked them pretty well. So we'll probably have gray trucks going forward. But we changed some conspicuity also around a little bit because as folks sit on scenes and whatnot, believe it or not, people run into ambulances and fire trucks and whatnot. So we're trying to bring a little bit more attention to them as far as that goes. Our mobile integrated healthcare program we've run since 2009. We are kind of known as a national leader in this program. We work with home health programs, hospital programs for readmission avoidance. We really spend a lot of time with the patients, helping them understand what their disease process is, helping figure out what needs they have that need to be met so that they don't have to go back in the hospital. We see about a 50% reduction in hospital readmissions or hospice readmissions for this. It's very important for some of the end of life care because they get to spend more time with their loved ones in their final days and final months. We also use it for what we affectionately call our high utilizer group, which are people that call us very frequently. Initially, it was like once a day. Now we've gotten it down to they'll call several times a week. But again, that typically tend to be social issues that we can kind of dig in and figure out how teach them how to help themselves as far as what resources are available. And that is really what we're seeing more and more in the community and in the healthcare environment is people need sort of that navigation. That's also sort of what the insurance companies are looking for us to do is help navigate the patients to more appropriate care. So a couple of the programs we're going to be working on over the next year is really kind of taking a little bit more of a look as far as our lights and sirens response, our reprioritization through some of the conversations. We can go to the next slide. Through some of the conversations we've had, we realized the priority levels, those 1, 2, and 3 that they kind of triage through with the emergency medical dispatch process have not been revisited since probably before 2016, which predates me and several other people in our first responder advisory board EMS performance. And so we've set up a subcommittee to take a look at those based on historical information. By those, there's over 300 of those emergency medical dispatch codes. Looking at 3 years worth of data, if we can get a good idea on what percentages of those patients have significant issues from stable vital signs, that kind of stuff, it will help us put people more appropriately in kind of the priority 1, which is your highest acuity. Because we really, based on our early numbers, looking at it, we can get that to about a 50-50 shot of something that really is a time-sensitive illness that we can make a difference in. Out of our total call volume, you're looking at about 7 to 12% of our total calls that would fall in that priority 1 type category where time really makes that big of a difference. Then there's kind of that gray area that we call the priority 2s, and there's around another 20% in there that might be, but that's kind of the stuff we want to take a look at, really what that looks like from a total response type area, and in coordination with everybody else. Probably skip the next 2 slides. In coordination with everybody else, we can really dig into the evidence behind it and help take a more scientific approach to, what needs to be done, or that it's working perfectly fine and nothing needs to be done. So, and then the last one. And the last couple of things I have is our Star Saver program. We talk about this a little bit every year. As I mentioned, our ambulance bills are somewhere around $2,000. The Star Saver program is $69 a year for a household. Essentially, the way it works is we bill the insurance company, and the insurance company pays what they pay, and we write off the balance. It pays for itself if you ever do have to have an ambulance or ever have to use an ambulance. There are 27 households in Hazlet that have a Star Saver membership program. As we've done these throughout our service area, we've had some different council members and whatnot speak up and have used those programs in the past, and they really are very beneficial as far as, just not having to go through the headache of balance bill and whatnot. So, and we started a Star Saver Plus program also. There's an independent living facility in Fort Worth. They wanted to have somebody come out and that was available 24/7, kind of an on-demand type service. So if somebody doesn't wake up and they don't feel great in the morning, but they might not want to go to the emergency room, we'll send a critical care paramedic out or a mobile integrated healthcare paramedic out to evaluate them and help them determine the appropriate methodology for their continuing care. In that particular independent care program, they bought memberships for all their residents. So as part of the deal, and they've been very happy with that. So I'm happy to take any questions you all have. I appreciate your time.
There are, this program, the one prior to that, on this one, and you had another one that had with regard to probably about 4 slides up, another program. Yeah, right there.
Yes. MIH slide there.
If there's anything that we could, I would like to put that on our website. and bring it to the attention of our citizens that these programs are available. I mean, it'd be I think it'd be a great service to make them aware. And so anything that you might pass along with regard to this, please let us know. I can work with Kurt. You know, y'all are in communication quite often, I'm sure.
Yes, sir.
So I'll remind Kurt about that, but anything that we can do there, we'd be happy to.
That'd be great. So it's really a benefit for the, for the citizens. It just saves some headache down the road. And for most people, $69 for the house is not, it's well worth it kind of for the peace of mind just
Sure.
to, hey, I don't have to worry about the bill. So, but I can send Chief Mays the link to because they can sign up electronically if they'd like to and all that. We try to make it as easy as possible.
Very good.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
I have a quick question.
Sorry. Yes, sir.
How many ambulances serve Hazlet?
How many ambulances? So we move ambulances around. The idea is that as one gets used, we backfill with another one. So there's typically not one posted exactly in Hazlet. There's one up north that we post relatively close to Hazlet. We have a whole computer-aided dispatch program that helps move those ambulances around by call volume, helps cover the geography as well.
So right now, just one ambulance that covers Hazlet. Is that correct? Or
Well, again, so we
like at any given point, for example, you have two or one, and
you may have 7 ambulance posted around the outside of Hazlet. There may be one posted near Hazlet. So we typically don't. There's not one that we dedicate specifically to Hazlet.
Okay.
Very blessed to have close to us. 2 hospitals that are out here. We're really blessed.
And just because our city's growing quite a bit, I was just wondering if there's going to be more added if they're needed.
So we continually evaluate the demand and we add resources based on that demand. And so normally we add somewhere around 5%, 3 to 5% at headcount to the our total pool at budget time. This from October of 2020, we had around 60 ambulances. Our board approved for us to go to 75 total ambulances in the fleet. And so granted, all 75 won't be out at the same time, but we do increase our deployment based on our demand. And that's kind of basically how the system works. Yes, sir.
Very good. Council, any other questions? Mr. Simpson, thank you very much. It was great. And again, I look forward to getting those materials on our website.
Absolutely. We will send them.
And you do a great job. The
Thank you.
organization does a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Y'all have a good night.
All right, council, let's go to 6B, Hassett Parkway construction right-of-ways. I'll give you that update. All right-of-ways have been acquired and have so been for over a month. There is one parcel called Parcel 14. It was one that went into condemnation. The court went through court, and we have possession of that and full rights, for the contractors to do their work. We did have a settlement that we've not closed on it, but it's in process, and that was an additional $19,000, and we're in the process of closing that completely, and that will by this time, next council meeting should be done, and I'll report on that. Now, there are other entities like Encore. They are acquiring some rights of way, an easement for, at their cost. to do certain things, such as they might need small amounts to place guy wires for the poles, things of that nature. But Haslett has acquired all its rights of way. Any questions on that?
Yeah, so phase one is the Encore phase one or phase two or both are the Encores?
There's encore in both phases, and there is Tri-County as well in phase one.
So just on phase one, that's 35 to how far west? I know intermodal as well.
Think of just stopping short of the school. On the east, stops on the east side of the school. That's where phase one ends.
And phase one coming along pretty well with construction wise?
Oh, yes. The entire project, we meet weekly. We have a project meeting with TxDOT, and they are on schedule. The L is being accelerated with a opening of March 31st, and that's about 9 months from now.
I'm sorry, what's March 31st? I apologize.
March 31st, the L. Are you familiar with the L? It's the section of from I-35, Haslett Parkway, and intermodal. That's something we've been working on for, well, since January. Nonetheless, they're still dotting I's and crossing T's, but that's a great job. That was a public-private partnership, and a lot of value to all parties concerned, particularly logistics people. And so that'll be a big impact on Haslett, is to get that section of that roadway open up soon, so the logistics folks, the semi trucks and those warehouse workers have a more expedient route to the warehouse district. That's any other questions on rights of way, those concerns? We're there. We've been done. We're closing the loop on the last one, and we'll be finished. Very good. I do want to mention on here is that our staff has been very successful in interviewing. We've got some new employees that are coming on board. We do have a staff accountant that they start August 1st, I believe it is, Janet. And then we have IT person that we've been looking for quite some time. And when do they start? About that same time?
July 11th.
July the 11th. Come on, IT. Great addition. And then we have someone in public works starting, don't we?
Chris Barton started last Monday.
Last
Water
Monday.
Department.
So we're making progress. Making progress. All great folks that we've been able to find. Takes time. But I just want to thank y'all for authorizing those positions. All right, let's go to item 7, consent agenda. And that is our meeting minutes from June 6, 2022.
Mayor Halsey, I move to accept the consent agenda as written.
Motion's made to accept the consent agenda as written. Is a second?
I'll second.
There is a second. All in favor by aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Item 8, public hearings, ordinances, resolutions, and action items. Council, of recent discovery, I need to pull item 8A, item 8B, and item D. Reason being is the city did not notify property owners with regard to the first two items within 200 feet. We did all the other actions, the newspapers, and so we need to pull those. You'll see these soon. Item 8D, there is some wording in the agreement that is not particularly, I'll say, appropriate for the agreement. And we just need to pull that and we'll bring it back to you. So if we could go to item 8C, discuss, consider, and act regarding the approval of an addendum to the city engineer services contract to include gas well inspection services. And in your handout that Mr. Montgomery gave us some information. The first one, the 20-something page, this is out of our oil and gas. This is out of the codified ordinances, but it's out of our ordinance. You'll find under section, give me a moment. It would be the third page in on the back side. It is item C. The city council shall designate a petroleum gas inspector who shall enforce the provisions of this section. The petroleum gas inspector shall be licensed to practice engineering in the state. And there's other statements there, but also is it cites, because I had a question, how often do they inspect? That's annually, a minimum of annual inspections. And I wanted to point out where that is, and that's in this same area right here. Right here, it's item 2C2 in the middle of that paragraph. States the petroleum and gas inspector may conduct periodic inspections at least once a year of all permitted wells in the city to determine that the wells are operating in accordance with proper safety parameters. Is Mr. Anderson online?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So the proposal is that I have before you is assigning this. The past, let me go to the past inspection was geosciences. There was a request of what do we pay, and in front of you is a annual invoice. They inspect all the wells at least annually that we have. And then also anything that, say that there was a new drilling or something, also on an as needed basis. But this is the last that we had is with Modern Geosciences. That contract has not been renewed, and it's so we need to appoint a gas well inspector. And I propose that we appoint Belchef and Associates to fulfill that role. Belchef and Associates performed that service for the city from 1999 to 2016. And in 2016, as you're aware, there was a wholesale change in engineering services across the board. And went to different maps, gas well inspection, et cetera, went to multiple firms. But nonetheless, Mr. Anderson,
Yes, sir.
The proposal that you are making, would you just brief the council on that?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Can everybody hear me? I'm getting some pretty good feedback.
No, we hear you fine.
Okay. What we have before you is an extension of our hourly professional services that we provide for the city. A little bit different setup than current inspection. That the city's working with for their inspections. We're proposing an hourly fee to handle the inspections performed. We found that actually that gives the city a better.
Mr. Anderson, we got maybe every third word. So let me paraphrase this agreement. Is Belchip and Associates is fully qualified and they have the experienced personnel to perform this activity. They are proposing an hourly basis. Currently, this firm and all other firms that were utilized from 2016 to current, their invoicing was based on, they flip over to our fee schedule and go, oh, okay, you got to pass, this will be a pass through and it's $1,000 a well. Now you might be at a pad site that's got 4 or 5 wells on it. Well, it's $1,000 a pop. But in reality, it might take 2 hours or 3 hours. This we get very professional. I mean, there is no drop in expertise, lack of expertise. Is that Belchip and Associates, they particularly specialize in small municipalities, and they do this service for other municipalities as well. Mr. Anderson might cite some of them, but I think this would be a great move. And open any questions that you may have.
I guess the question would be, you said an hour, it's back to the hourly of the original contract. Are they going to propose an amendment to us with that rate that we agreed to beforehand, or is it
No, it's the same rate.
going to use the same rates?
Yeah.
Okay.
It says that we're moving because it's significant savings to the city. So that's why I asked for what we pay now. How long have we used Geoscience?
We have used Geosciences maybe for 2 years, and we've had multiple other firms that almost changed year by year.
So it's a yearly contract that we sign with is that correct?
Yes.
And then, so I'm looking at this correctly. Do we have 124 current gas wells? I mean, is that how many we have in the city right now? This was their annual invoice. It said they did 124 at $7.25 each. So what will the hourly rate be for Belchip? Because it's not all of those things on the rate schedule, is it? That comes to like 2,000. Just some of those, Mr. Anderson?
Let me see if I can answer that for you. I guess you have a copy of the proposal in front of you. You could go to our rate sheet, which would be the last page there, number 238 in your packet. Just to give you an example, so if Chris Polidor was going to go do the inspection, and let's say there were 4 wells on one location, he would he would drive out there, perform his inspection on that particular pad site, accounting for the 4 wells. And if it was just him out there doing the work, which typically it's either him or another gentleman in the office, we would bill him at $160 an hour for that trip. Now, we do take advantage of multiple trips to multiple sites in a single day, just to make things as efficient as possible. But depending on what activities he's actually doing, he may be billed at a slightly lower rate, but the 160 would be the high end for inspection services. If it was something like, hey, I need to go back up and follow up to make sure that they got this Knox box replaced, or if they need to do some sort of vegetative screening and he's following up on that, and there's an opportunity for us to bill at a lower rate, we always look to do that for you guys, whether it's in the general services that we provide for you on a project basis or for these. So the hourly rates would be in accordance with the schedule, and it would really more or less depend on the activities that are undertaken as to which of these rates would be assigned for that particular task. Just looking back at the last 3 years or so that we were doing this for you guys, we were averaging between 40 and 60,000 a year in billing to the city. So that's the last 3 years data that I was able to get a hold of about a month ago. So significant savings there as it relates to the amount of that you've been paying currently.
Thank you very much.
Mayor Halls.
Yes.
Okay, on the invoice for geoscience, it says the charges reflect activities from January 21 to June 21. That can be the double bill? Or is that just when they inspect it during that time period and they don't inspect anything the second half?
Yeah, this reflects their annual inspections.
Okay,
And if there should happen something outside that time frame for, as needed or new well site of that would be an additional bill to this.
So, Mayor Halls, sorry, let me get the form, I guess, first. Sorry. The question is, I think, the billing shows that this is only for 6 months, but they've done the work for a full year. Is that correct?
Correct. They did all the annual inspections.
Okay, so it took them, I got you. So this is an annual contract. They need to do anything outside of this, that it would be billed separate.
Right.
With a new system, it's going to be billed per hour, no matter
Correct.
what. Okay. And the anticipated savings is from 89, almost 90,000 to 50,000 that we were being billed previously.
Correct. Well, you would be seeing approximately a 30% savings.
If the same number of wells were in 2017 that they are now, which they're pretty.
About the same number.
Well, they said in 2017 it cost 50 to 60. So, and for it to still be 50 to 60, it'd be, but they're doing more than just one at a time, which is good. And it does also looks like our amount authorized. So this we have in the budget is 92,000. So we have a little bit remaining. So we could actually lower that budget amount. We wouldn't need as much moving forward if we go with Belcher.
Sure. Any other questions, council?
I guess just one more quick question. What is it, the time that it takes to inspect each of the wells? Do you know?
Mr. Anderson.
Well,
Standard well inspection.
Tricky question, but I'll attempt to do my best here. Some wells have SUP requirements, zoning requirements on them, which requires us to spend a little bit more time checking for checking against whether those things have been implemented. If they are implemented, are they meeting requirements? That's one of the things that we do a little bit different than what you've seen in the past is we focus a little bit more on what's required for these wells to meet zoning and SUP requirements. The regulatory compliance component of the wells themselves, those are typically met by the operators under their railroad permit with the state. So it depends, but I would say on average, each well site could be looked at in 2 hours or less. You have to go. We do have to bring it back to the office and do a report and summarize findings, follow up with the operators, property owners, et cetera. But I would say on average, just the out there in the field, boots on the ground, you could get an inspection on a well site done in 2 hours. So if there's one well or 4 wells on that site, 2 hours should handle it, if that makes sense.
One of the things that Mr. Anderson brings up is they also inspect with regard to our ordinances and the SUPs and the landscaping requirements and the finishing of the well, which we don't get from others services. And that's one of our biggest complaints right now. We have, of course, there's numerous wells throughout the city, but particularly where we have subdivisions being built and these it's not paid attention to. And having a gas well inspector that is knowledgeable of those other requirements outside of the Railroad Commission would be advantageous.
And one last question. What is the new rate if we were to sign with Belchev?
The new rate?
Yes. Is it going to stay the same at $7.25 or is it going to be?
No, they would bill by the hour. Yes. And so as an example, $160 an hour by a professional engineer, that's oil and gas inspector, 2 hours, you're looking at $320.
I'm willing to give them a try if it would be a advantageous thing to save money for the city, so. And
I would
then
entertain a motion. Please.
Do we add just say a year? Okay, I'll try it. I'll make a motion to approve an addendum to the city engineer services contract to include gas well inspection services for a fiscal year.
In the contract, is there can you pull that up, the agreement? Is it in the ordinance here? Okay, scroll down. And I was looking if there was any notification or anything. This does not specify a time period, but a year is good. And so a motion has been made to approve designating the city Belchev and Associate as the our oil and gas well inspector for a period of 1 year. And did I capture that motion correctly? Is there a second?
I'll second.
There is a second. All in favor by aye? Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, council. Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Mayor Halsey?
Yes.
One question on that, and again, it is an addendum to the original agreement. And I think the original agreement was a 3-year agreement, so will we need to actually address that separately?
No, this has been designated. There's
For
no
1 year.
time in the contract The tie to the original agreement is the hourly rate.
Okay.
Item 8D. That is the one we said we were pulling. Item 8E. Discuss, consider, and act on the purchase of an AM radio station using the Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund. Chief Mays.
Excuse me, real quick. We've had a request from the audience for you to sit close to your mic so everybody can hear you, please.
All righty. Well, welcome, Mayor and Council. I'm pretty excited to bring this one to you. I think the opportunity that Haslett has to own and operate its own AM radio station to better enhance communications with those we serve is what's before you. Again, the funding of this would come from the CLRF money. I did just notice that apparently I gave Shannon the wrong number, so I do have the correct invoice that matches what is in front of you. For those of you who caught that, I just caught that, so my bad, I own that one. So the correct number is what is posted is the 29,916.65. So I wanted to get that out there. Now, so the AM radio station would be physically located at the fire station. The antenna has to be about 50 foot away from the building. It's going to be somewhere in that 25-foot tall range is kind of what I've determined through talking with the guy. It is hurricane rated at 130 miles an hour. It will not have guide wires that we've buried 6 feet in the ground. I think it's around 18 feet tall, and then there's another little antenna that comes off of that. So somewhere around that 25 foot is that overall height. It'll be kind of behind the station to the, I guess, northeast of the station. So should be a little protected from that. The main brain will be located inside the fire station in what we call our EOC, our Emergency Operations Center. It's a designated room where we do all of our weather monitoring, have our computers. So in the event of a disaster, we can go into this room and work together. But again, this thing has the ability to do many pre-recorded messages, as well as the ability to flip a switch and go live should we need to go live, either emergency, non-emergency. It doesn't matter. It's our station. All the mayor and I ask is if you want to sing on it, you have to audition before we let you sing. So, but I think this is, not to just repeat everything I wrote, it's ours to broadcast whatever message we need to send out. So let's see. Man, I think it's that simple. So I'll just stop and take questions.
Again, reiterating, this is not using the City of Haslett funds.
That is correct. This falls underneath the ARPA, the American Recovery Plan Act, just the CLRF. Anyway, that is underneath the communications module. So again, whenever we had from power outages to if we had more COVID, we could announce here's warming centers. We could announce here's where you could do vaccination sites. So it allows us to communicate with our people, and especially, you know, if you go back to the power outage, you know, many of us didn't have our phones couldn't charge up. You didn't have anything. They would sit in their car to try and warm up. It was the only heat that they had. So at that point, you could turn over to the AM station and hopefully get some direction if there was direction to be given.
I believe it or not, I believe I first brought this up in 2007. The reason being, we have facilities, you know, here we are, we're in the elbow of this industrial complex of, you know, of goods and services. And we have facilities here like as a very large ammonia plant that if anything catastrophic were to happen, and this is what spurred my thought back then, is it has a kill radius of 1 mile if that plant had a catastrophic failure. Okay. And we, you know, Okay, you need to get out of town. Yeah, well, which way? Which way do we go? Literally, that was my thought. We just really weren't in a position then to do that, but here we are. We're able to use federal funds to fund this. And I think it'd be a great thing, especially to sponsor the Haslett Quartet on Saturday evenings. But anyway, council, please, within your questions.
I've got a question. So this, you can say anything on this thing, obviously, right? But even though it's just designated as an emergency station?
Yeah, the guy said it's your station to do and say what you want.
Okay.
And they will give us training. There's no training that we have to have. There's no certifications. They'll just come show us how to use it, and away we go.
Are the funds, have the funds already been allocated to the city, or we have to do it first and then?
No, sir.
get reimbursement for it?
We receive, don't hold me to the number. There's 430,000 that we will eventually get. We got like 238 this year, and we'll be getting another. So that's the money that we'll be pulling from. Marcy already has that in the bank, and we've used that for some other approved items.
So this amount is the maximum they approve, or this is the amount that the station is the cost of the station?
The money from the government, is that the question?
Yes. I guess the question is, did they give a certain amount and we're spending all that for this station? Or did the station come and say, this is what it costs?
Yeah,
we're pulling it from these
here's
funds?
your 238,000.
Okay.
Here's categories you can pick from to use that money. Communications is one of the options.
Okay.
So we're just taking that money out of that.
Okay. One more question.
I have a question. So is this going to be 24-hour broadcast of something and then basically
It's just going to loop. It's just going
It's
to
gonna
loop
loop.
itself, whatever.
and then when there's emergency or something like that, that they can listen to it and it's going to give the emergency instructions?
Yeah, and even like, I know most of us don't have the old NOAA weather radio because we all got our phones. But again, if NOAA weather says that there's a thunderstorm warning, tornado warning, whenever they hit a warning, then it will interrupt our broadcast, our loop, and put out that information.
Plus events, meetings, anything, special event, anything we wanted to update the
Road
citizens.
closures, voting locations, whatever you,
Would our meetings be broadcast on the,
I don't know how we would be able to broadcast that live since it's remote from there. Technology, new IT guy, we'll figure it out.
So you could, traffic, like issues, lockdowns,
Now, so
avoid. that sort of thing?
remind you, the answer is yes. Now, but who's going to be there live to monitor it? On the fire side, we're typically on the call. And so we'll have to figure
If
that
it was
out. But
something major, like a
Yes,
major
ma'am.
accident.
yeah, if we were going to have a ice bridge, it's going to be closed, for a while, or that road over there is, yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yes,
Or
ma'am.
in answering, yes, if there was a major accident somewhere and we need to notify people to stay away from this area. Absolutely. That can be, actually, that could be recorded, right? And played and then retired after the event's over.
It has that ability. We'll work through the functionality of it, but yes, it has the ability.
If there's no more questions, I'd entertain a motion.
Mayor Halsey?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of the AM radio station using the Corona Local Fiscal Recovery Fund.
Motion is made to purchase the AM radio station using the Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
There is a second. Call for the vote. All in favor by aye.
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 All opposed? The ayes have it. Item 8F. Discuss, consider, and act on technology improvements to the boardroom using ARPA funds. And You recall Chief Mays just mentioned ARPA funds. Mr. Tucker, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This item is for some much-needed updates to our boardroom. This is a multi-use room that all staff uses. And as everybody knows, in the last few years, virtual meetings have become a standard. So there's a great need to have a repeatable and consistent meeting space that doesn't require a lot of setup, doesn't have a lot of cabling, and staff doesn't have to worry about having a device available to bring with them to utilize the screen. Stephen has a handful of pictures up there, and also you have one printout. So the printout is a typical Teams room setup. Ours would only include a single 85-inch TV, but this would give you a good idea of what it would look like. So a large TV on the wall, the bar underneath there, that is a Logitech Rally bar. So that includes a PTZ camera, 2 speakers, a microphone, and it actually has the hardware built in to conduct a Teams meeting. So instead of needing to bring a laptop, you can activate a meeting just from the console that's on the lower left part of the screen. And that will work natively with Teams and Zoom. In the addition that we have an invite from another platform. In that case, you do have the option to bring a laptop, but our typical meetings are going through Teams. So the room back there would be assigned its own Teams room. So you'd always have the same number, the same setup, and it could interface with the existing calendar. So you would just basically invite everybody to that room, and it would be available on demand. So in addition to those, like the majority of the hardware is the screen and this platform, it would have some additional mics on the table itself, either mounted in the ceiling or through the table. And that would make sure we pick up everybody. And then we're also going to be adding some recessed receptacles that'll include ways to charge phones and laptops for anybody that brings them. This also offers some wireless solutions, so people in the room do not have to have cabling in all scenarios, and some scenarios they can connect by Bluetooth. So these are all things that we are currently doing, but it is with a nightmare of cabling, and everybody has a different device which has its own set of issues. This allows you to always leverage a room that has a permanent camera, microphone, speakers, and it should be simple to train and simple to use, so anybody could utilize this on demand with little to no training. Any questions?
I had one. The $10,000 is coming from the funds, once again, not from our budget, which is great. Is it the same as the other one? There's no recurring cost once 10,000 is?
So the only reoccurring cost is the Teams itself. The Teams room requires a Microsoft Teams license. It's similar to our email licenses, so it'd be just like another employee. It's kind of similar to the way a copier requires an email address, because the copier would have to have a way to send. So that would be the only reoccurring cost, and I believe it's roughly $15 a month for the lowest plan. There is another option to use basically staff credentials, but the intention is to have a standalone room, so the room itself always exists as a meeting place.
I got a quick question. Do you know what the cost breakdown is with the labor and the equipment?
Well, so the labor is being provided by Public Works, and Stephen, I assume, will be helping us as well. We feel very confident on the install. We've hung several TVs, and there's really not, beyond using cable management, fishing some wires, and hanging the devices, there's not a huge labor issue. We think we can install this in 2 to 3 days tops. The majority of the cost is in the Logitech, the Rally bar, the mic pods, and the tap, which is a console. That represents roughly $6,800 of it. The remaining is the screen and the mounts for that, and then cabling. And then there is roughly a built-in 15% contingency in that. So we do think we should come a little lower on the cost, but.
Is there a time frame based upon the approval, whether it'd be up and running?
As of last week, most of the components were ready to ship from Dell directly. So the hope would we would get them within a week and install them within 3 days after receiving all of them. the TVs and things like that are typically available. We're going to get them directly through Best Buy.
Any other questions, council?
Mayor Holsey,
Yes.
I move to approve the act of technology improvements to the boardroom using the ARPA funds.
Motion is made to approve the technology improvements to the boardroom using the ARPA funds. Is there a second?
Mayor Halsey, I second.
There is a second. All in favor indicated by
I
aye.
had a discussion. Do we need the amount listed or not? Since it's kind of built in and it might not even come to that. That was just my question.
You can. So what I would, so it's already been motioned and seconded. You could ask the main motioner if they would add the amount.
Do we need to do that? If not,
Well, if you needed to, it needed to be on the agenda. So, I mean, it's.
You don't
As
have
stated on the
to,
agenda.
council member Morrow, because we already had your presentation. We're going to stay within that budget. Very good. All right, so there's a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, council. Thank you. All right, council, the next item, 8G, is fiscal year 2022-2023 budget calendar. What we have here is our budget calendar, and is Ms. Slam on the phone?
Yes, sir.
Or
Yes,
on
sir.
in? Marcy, would you like to go over this calendar for us, please?
Sure. Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening, Mayor and
Council. I've got some feedback on my feed. The budget calendar that's presented is the calendar that we would follow to, if we adopted a tax rate that was greater than the voter approval rate and the de minimis rate. This is a somewhat of an aggressive timeline, but it gives the mayor and council the most options in deciding what is to be included in the budget, and allows for the most latitude and what you might ask the taxpayers to support. The calendar has the dates. Several of the dates are kind of internal for staff, for some publishing requirements, some hearings, things like that. And the council has the regular council meetings included and what might occur at those regular council meetings. In July, there are 2 budget workshops scheduled, one being on July 9th, which is a Saturday, and the other one is on July the 16th, another Saturday. Those workshops would start at 10 in the morning. There would be lunch included, and are expected to last about, possibly 4 to 6 hours. The items that are denoted in your calendar in the bright pink colors are special meetings that would need to be scheduled, not on your regular meeting dates, to meet certain requirements and the deadlines, and to provide, once again, kind of the longest window possible for those decisions to be made and still make the deadlines. There is not a lot of wiggle room in this calendar, so we would need to know very shortly if attendance cannot be managed for any of these special meetings or any of the other regular scheduled meetings. The most important date on the special meetings is going to be on the 11th of August and the 22nd of August, On the 11th of August, the council will be asked to vote on a proposed tax rate. That vote would precede a hearing that's required on the tax rate, and then an actual adoption of the tax rate later. The council would vote on a proposed tax rate. That tax rate could be changed at the final adoption, should the council, through their deliberations, decide that it needed to be. And you would also be able to have input from the public at the public hearing on the tax rate. On the 22nd, there are several things that would happen on that day. One is to actually adopt the tax rate and have the hearing. And so that is a very important special meeting date. We would also adopt the budget on that day if it hadn't been already adopted on August the 15th in your regular session. So we've tried to build in, some additional dates that should there be any lingering items to be decided upon, we would know exactly what the last drop dead dates are. Those drop dead dates are colored in red on your calendar. And so if we missed those dates, we've missed some opportunities in our timeline for adoption of the budget on schedule. The thing that kicks off the intense part of adopting the tax rate is on July 25th. Possibly, I've got some indications that we might actually get them on the 22nd, but the valuations of Hazlet Properties is due from Tarrant County, from the appraisal district on the 22nd or the 25th. Also, the worksheets that are used to be calculating the rates would be released hopefully shortly before then, if not on those same days. The comptroller's office actually prescribes the format for the calculations, and we have not seen those forms as of yet during this budget cycle. Those forms are revised every year to match any kind of changes in the legislature regarding the calculation of the tax rates and any kind of new items that the city might have. Say, for instance, if you had a new tax increment financing district or something that would affect your taxable entity. So there's a lot of things that go into doing that. This year, the county is expecting record numbers of protests. So I believe the last date to actually file your protest is July the 5th. So there's a very tight timeline, and a lot of times when we get our valuations, a lot of the protests have not been finalized at that time. So we go through the calculations with certain estimates of what we think those protests will end up actually being. So there's a lot of work to be done in July and August. The department managers and department heads are busy compiling information to give to the mayor as budget officer to review and make his recommendation on what will be included in the budget. And that the two different workshops, the council will hear his presentations and his recommendations on the budget for both the operating piece, the M&O portion of the budget, as well as capital projects. And I believe he's introduced several of those projects to you a little bit earlier in the year. And those projects will be fine-tuned a little more, refined a little bit more for those cost estimates. Are there any questions about the budget calendar? Or Shannon, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
I really wanted to make sure that council looks at the date for the special meetings to make sure that you can attend those meetings, because for special meetings, we do need to have a quorum of at least 4 council members. So if you could look at your calendar and let us know as soon as possible if any of those dates will not work for you.
So why don't we in the morning is email each council member this calendar and draw their attention to the special meetings to affirm as soon as possible. That means like tomorrow afternoon. That you can or cannot make this because we have to go to work. There's a lot of work put in to make this calendar. Also, if you go to the July calendar, there you are. Okay. I had proposed having these 2 workshops instead of trying to shove all this in the evenings, on work nights, because on the 9th, I intend to open with State of the City, which should be background with regard to our budget, that what we will be looking at. So it's the backdrop of things, the state of our city. So having 2 days, a Saturday, 2 Saturdays, instead of going into a marathon, I think we would get better value out of it. You would, in determining what these budgets are. So if you could give us confirmation now, there's not a quorum or not a super majority required on these workshops. But there are on the special council meetings. We need 4. So if y'all could at your earliest date notify Shannon your availability to make these dates.
And do you still need a quorum though for the workshops as well, or not?
Yes,
Anyone?
we still need a quorum to have the workshop.
And I know Ms. Lamb, you mentioned, I think you said 5 to 6 hours. Was there any thought or discussion of just having the 9th go be a marathon workshop, or
A night?
9th, the July 9th, Saturday, be the entire thing? Because in the past, it was like you said, 2 hours during the week. So
No,
this one's what, 5
there-
hours? 10
You'll be
hours.
seeing materials and spreadsheets that you've not seen before that need explanation. And it'll be a great tool because we'll be looking out into 2030. Because what we have to address to accommodate this year and will affect many years to come. So that's why I was allowing for that, to give ample time and to ensure your understanding of what we are presenting and the effects that will have in the following years that we have these 2 workshops.
Mayor, I'll tell you right now, I'll be out of town on the 9th and on the 16th.
I know on the 16th.
Yes, both Saturdays.
Okay. Is there anybody else that knows that?
I'll be out of the country on the 16th, but I could try to remote in if that's a possibility.
Yeah, that it's always a possibility. You know what? We might have our new system up and running.
Mayor Halsey, I was actually going to look at the aspect of maybe the 9th, having only taking 1 Saturday and then taking the following week during that week, since that week is free as of the other budget session, like we had in the last year, starting at 6, an hour earlier. But at least getting that first one in, maybe on the 9th, but maybe then the next week having a budget session on the evening. That way you are not taking up 2 Saturdays.
I understand. You want to make that a motion?
I don't think this is an action item.
It's not?
Because I was looking at that.
It
myself
is not an action item. Okay, but we could still have a motion to it. It's all in accordance with Robert's Rule of Order. I mean, you're under the whole category of discussion, consideration, and action. I mean, if you want to, let's hit that box with the rest of them, make a motion.
Yeah, at that point, then again, Mayor Halsey, I move to accept the July 9th budget workshop as presented in the calendar and move to have the second budget session during the week of July 11th, one of the nights, starting it.
Okay, council, motion's made to take the budget workshop for Saturday, and I'll use the different term, spread it across the week.
Actually, I was looking at last year, we actually had started at 6 o'clock in the evening. And I was thinking the important meeting now is the July 9th meeting, because you have a lot of things you need to present to us on the 30-year plan. So that's the important one of having that 10 to 3 on the Saturday. The next one being one night during that week, starting at 6 o'clock.
That will not accommodate. I can tell you that.
Okay, I just remember last year we went to almost midnight that one night.
I
so.
think that last year is going to prove simple compared to what this one is.
Could the 9th then be changed to a full day instead of 10 to 3, but 10 to 8?
Well, we could. It would wear me out. Let me just ask the council then. I mean, are you available? How many people are available? Are all of you, I mean, all of y'all trying to, I mean, you can't make 2 weekends? Okay, you can't. Let me show how, I mean, just who could make 2 Saturdays? If just show your hand.
I don't know yet because of my travel schedule. I can make the 9th, but I'm not sure about the 16th.
Okay, so one of you. All right. All right. Then how many can make the 9th? Okay, 4 of you. Okay, I'm looking at that Friday night. You know, I'm gonna say something, you know, doing a marathon thing where if I'm up here, we're up here for 10 hours, no one's paying a lot of attention. And you're just interested in getting out. That's just how it goes. You get tired and worn out and you're dealing with a lot of numbers. And that doesn't make for good decisions. I understand it's a sacrifice. I understand that. I'm not asking this lightly. But what we do in this one workshop, or these workshops, are going to have effect for many coming years. We need to understand that. So this is not a light subject. I am asking you to sacrifice. I am. I know I am. Because I'm right there along with you every step of the way. So anyway, so we can have a quorum here, I see, on the 9th.
And I have a suggestion too, that maybe you take that 16th and divide it between the 8th and the 11th so that you have that 4 hour, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 5 hours, and you do a 2.5, 2.5. And so you're not doing a marathon, like you said, really late, but you have 2 days to split that 16th up. Possible suggestion.
So how about if we just start out on a Monday and we'll at least schedule, say 3 hours from Monday night, Tuesday night. And if we need Thursday night or Wednesday night and or Thursday night, we'll take it. How about that? Can we do that?
That's fine. I look at the aspect you're scheduled for 5 hours on Saturday, and now you're asking for 6 to 8 hours. So that's that was the only reason that I was looking at starting at 6 o'clock on an evening. If you took that 5 hours, that takes you to 11 o'clock,
Yeah.
like we did last year.
Oh, I'm more interested in the quality of the decisions and your understanding of what's coming.
And I understand that too.
Okay? Are you amenable to that? We'll schedule 11 and 12. And if we need additional days thereafter, we'll take it. Yes, you can. Absolutely.
In person.
Yeah, if we just have 3 in person, the rest of you can be remote.
So this is one meeting on the 9th, Saturday, and then the other meeting split up between maybe 3 nights the following week.
Right,
The 11th through the 15th sometime.
correct.
Okay.
Parks meets on Wednesday, the 13th, so that night would be the only one that you would not be meeting.
What about the 13th?
Parks meets that night.
Well, maybe they can meet in that room, or we'll meet in that room. We still have a budget workshop. We can manage this.
Okay, so I leave to go out of the country on the 12th. So I am available the 9th and the
Okay.
11th, but I will be out the 12th.
All right, the remaining of you, what's your availability during the week between the 11th and the 15th?
I'm available the 9th, and I'll free up my entire week if need be for that.
Okay,
the 11th
so
and
you're
15th.
available.
Yes.
Either remotely or, okay, you're here and present. Okay, you're out of country, the 12th. Okay, how about the rest of you? You're out. So I'm hearing that we can't have a budget workshop. Here's what I'm hearing.
Sorry, I've had plans since February.
Are you here? So I got 2 of you here. Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm here.
You're here on the
I'm
9th.
here on the 9th.
No, I'm talking about this week between the 11th and the 15th. I understand. But that give me 2 people here. Okay. Well, let's start thinking out of the box. We know that we can do a night. It looks like I can't get a quorum here between the 11th and the 15th.
I'll be here the 11th.
Well, that's one day. That's a few hours, and that doesn't get us across the goal line.
I don't know how many of you work from home, but on Friday I can do the entire day and Saturday. So Friday, Saturday would be the 2 days that we need, and then you don't take up 2 weekends, and we have a quorum.
Okay, Friday
Friday the 8th and 9th.
and the 9th. And then I'll need Monday.
Not if we have the whole day Friday.
No,
This is
I need to plan for contingency if we don't finish. So
We
I'm
have Monday.
the 8th, the 9th, and the 11th.
I'm available those 3 days.
And, okay. Are you available?
I'll probably
Remote, okay. How about on this end, on the 11th? Are you available? Anybody here, you're available? Not on the 11th. You are on the 8th.
That's what I asked you about earlier. Yes, was the July 7th for a special meeting.
All right.
That meeting's not represented on this right now.
Okay, well, let's start out with scheduling. We'll do the 8th, starting at 7 o'clock. Is that all right?
Like I said, I'm available all
What
during the
about
day.
you?
All day.
Okay, all right, then we might start,
So
we
what
can
I'm
start 1 o'clock then.
Yeah, well, that's what
conceivably.
I'm saying. We could probably, instead of doing the 9th and the 16th, we'll do the 8th and the 9th, and we have a quorum for both days, and I'm available all day. Additional,
So
we have the 11th.
is that everybody is available all day Friday? Cause we could start in the morning if we needed
Yes.
to. Hey, I'm slow, but I get there. Okay. So that's what we'll do. We'll start we'll have our opening session on Friday, most likely Friday morning. We'll get the times out to you. Everybody's available all day, so this will take up most of your day. and then we can go into Saturday. That'd be good. And should we need anything thereafter, we got actually 10, almost 2 weeks thereafter to wrap up any items. But between those 2 days, you'll have a good understanding of where we are and what we need to do, or what's being proposed. What's being proposed and different plans of how to get there. Well, that's what will be presented to you, okay?
Since I made a motion, do I need to retract my motion?
You can read, there's not been seconded, you can retract the motion.
I retract the motion.
Very good. Good conversation. Good conversation. All right. Okay. Executive. Yeah.
Mayor, will these workshops be recorded?
Yes, they will.
Okay, thank you.
For your listening pleasure. Okay. If we could, item 9, executive session. I'd like to recess for, let's call it till 8:50. It's 8:42. Recess to 8:50, and we will go into executive session at that time. You can go outside and go. To resume the open session at 9:05 PM, June 20th, 2022. Item 10, there's no action, consideration or action resulting from the executive session to take. Item 11, future agenda items. Does anyone have anything for a future agenda item?
I have one. I would like to see, I don't know if the update's the right word, but maybe a plan of action for our current vacancies of city administrator and city economic development director. It was brought up on 4/4, but you said you wanted to wait until a new council was elected. So I'd like to just see that plan at the next meeting, please.
Sure. Anybody have anything else? And you've made note of that. All right, then let's move to item 12, adjourn. May I have a motion?
Mayor Holsey, I move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. We're adjourned. 9:06 PM.